Okay, let's get into the Reinhardt Season 7 Commander Card video. This is A-Class Reinhardt. We've done videos on Reinhardt in the past. We're doing the Commander Card video just kind of as a timestamp of where Reinhardt was at in Season 7. So if you haven't watched the basics on him, he's a tank commander. He's a great answer to Rogers. You build him like a tank commander, just like you build Elf, just like you build Rogers. The idea with him is all of his damage comes from hyperspace armor. Basically, it's thorns. He just wants to be super tanky and then get hit, and then while he gets hit, he heals from his 30% skill, and then he returns the damage back in thorns to the opponent that ignores tier suppression. It hits like true damage. It hits hard. And he truly is a great boss commander. He's a little more versatile than Rogers, and he beats Rogers, but he's still pretty vulnerable to Nekajiros, Vegas, any one-slot bus commanders. He's in a toe-to-toe fight going to do really well against everyone, but he does have his downsides, and that is his big vulnerability is he really relies on Constellation Blessing for heal, and he really relies on the hyperspace armor for damage. If you can debuff him, like Cepheus Jewels do, or like Full Metal does, then all of a sudden he is not very good. But once he's in your way, if you're garrisoning yourself with him or your allies garrisoning you, someone trying to clear him is incredibly difficult to do. So I've got some great replays to show him off. Here's the basic gear set. You know, he doesn't need resistance weaken because if he gets hit, his skill ignores strength and weaken and tier suppression. So I just put the resistance weaken on there. So if you do decide you can want to do some melee damage with your troops, which you don't need to, you'll have that option. Plus the stats on Shadow are really good, but Fearless Pants are best in slot. They're the most tanky. They have damage reduction. Valkyrie's good, but the Wrath Helmet is probably better, although it has penetration. You might prefer the Gift of the Valkyrie on him, one of the few commanders that prefers Gift of the Valkyrie. And then double Eternal Barriers. You know, if someone's running Virgo against you, they can reduce your damage so much that your base melee hits don't do any damage. It's really not that big of a deal for the tier 12 meta because a lot of your damage is coming from Terra Space, and then with him, all the damage is coming from hyperspace armor. So I think double Eternal Barrier is fine. Against another Reinhardt, you might be better off with Titans, but leave that up to you as a high level player. You're expected to figure that out on your own. As far as jewels are concerned, you know, his main concern is going to be other Reinhardts and Elf, a little bit of Rogers, but if you can disable your opponent's heal, Cepheus on him would be really good to disable other Reinhardts or Elves. And then, you know, Scorpio's fine for the damage. If you do have tier 9, 10, or 11, you might want to get one like Sagittarius or Leo if you're using those troop types. If it's tier 12, probably best to stick with Scorpio, maybe even consider Gemini. There's a lot of other options for airships, maybe even some of the debuff stuff, definitely Cepheus. It depends, you know, that's one of those things where it's such a high-level build, it really depends on the person using them, what their main concern is. Cancer is not a good choice for him. I don't think Virgo is bad for him. I think Virgo's okay, because if you can soften your opponent's damage, then your thorns are still going to hit them as hard, but you're not going to be hit as hard in return. So Virgo's not a bad choice for him. So I guess if I had to say it, God, it's so hard to say. The problem with Reinhardt is you still want to be able to land hits. You know, you don't want to totally depend on that Thorns ability. So I like Scorpio. I don't like Gemini as much. I like Cepheus if you're running into other Reinhardts and Elves. But also I would consider Virgo as a good choice. And what's the other one? There's one more airship one. The one that lowers accuracy for airships is also going to be good, because if your opponent doesn't hit you, your thorns still affects them. So Reinhardt all around is going to be good with pure damage. A little bit of dodge is fine. Or pure defense, a little bit of dodge is fine. And that's kind of that. If you want the Season 7 Reinhardt Commander card, it's in the description below. Full high def. Make sure you download it so that when you zoom in, it's not all blurry. And then I've got some videos I want to show off, which maybe I should have opened with. But here's a good video from last season. And this is an Elf versus Reinhardt video. This was one of the main concerns, is how Elf is so good. How does Reinhardt stand up to her? And in this replay, I don't remember who the players are, but they are two super high-level players, obviously. Max Leadership Commanders, Tier 12 on both sides. This is before Reinhardt was fully figured out. 888's Money has a Reinhardt in Season 7. and he did some amazing things. I've got one replay. I'll show that after this one. This is actually really long, and what this gets into is you'll see that the tank builds on both sides, so their melee hits and tear space, or their melee hits aren't very much, and their tear space hits are okay, but really they're both healing like crazy. And Elf has higher trigger rates on her skills, so she's hitting Reinhardt with her curse, and he's hitting her with his thorns. If he had Cepheus, it would have been a totally different story. But if she was running Cassiopeia, she could debuff the Cepheus on her. So it's kind of a fair fight. I'll go ahead and fast forward. This is actually an 18-minute replay. It's a super long replay. And eventually Reinhardt wins by knocking out that front row. And I will admit that the bottom row, she didn't have tier 12 down here. She had infantry, which maybe hits hard. No, tier 12 is definitely better there. But finally, at the 18th minute, I mean, that was a long replay. This was during a live stream. I captured this. You could see Reinhardt did take serious damage. He lost over, God, 2,000 something. And but, you know, he totally removed the top row for her. Still considered somewhat of a fair fight. But that's like a super high-level replay, kind of for reference. And then we'll do one more. Let's do Money's replay against Tron. So this is I think, is this the Tank Stella build? This might be the Tank Stella build versus a Reinhardt. I think the one slot bus damage build may do better. Let's see what Sagittarius does. Gemini, Sagittarius. Yeah, the Sagittarius isn't very hard. So this is the Tank Stella build, I think. It just doesn't hit very hard. And Stella, that's kind of why Stella got replaced. She just doesn't have that one slot bust meta because even with Sagittarius, he didn't do much damage. Snecko and Gilly are better choices this season. This is not a long replay. It gets fast forwarded, so you kind of see what happens here. But basically, Reinhardt's Thorns overcomes, and Stella's just not hitting him hard enough, so he just kind of heals through and deals the damage back. She did, if you'll notice there, she did actually break out the second slot. This was a long replay, but the bottom row caved, and she had 5,000 per slot. If you look at the final numbers here, there's not much left. But she did okay damage. Infantry versus airship, she did okay. But all in all, Reinhardt was still the better choice here. So, I mean, I don't think we need to cover that too much. That's pretty much how Reinhardt plays. He's super tanky. He relies on his skill triggers. He doesn't really rely on a lot of his damage as far as weapons are concerned. He's just he's like a tank build that's not as dependent on going on his skills as maybe Rogers is. Maybe I shouldn't say that. He definitely needs his skills, but that's kind of where Reinhardt's at right now. That's the gear. Those are the replays. I think we've said what we needed to say. We'll see you on the next one. Somebody sent me some fan mail. Let's open this up. It says brooch on it, which usually means a pin. We'll open this up and put it on the hat for today's video. So I don't know if there's a note in here from who sent it to me. Oh, cool. It says EXO on it. The only thing that reminds me of EXO is Exostalker. And it's got his... I bet Exostalker sent this to me. Exo, if this is from you, let me know. But thanks for the pin, man. You guys know I love pins. And we are desperately running out of new pins for the videos. I show you guys, if you guys saw the YouTube post, I showed off all the pins I've ever worn and a couple I have not. So, cool. Serenity was his partner or wife. I'm not sure what she is. She got me a pin that says Serenity on it. And these are all the pins I've ever worn. There's Serenity's pin. I wonder if Exo got me one that says his name on it. But those are all the pins. So, guys, if you want to send me pins, use the fan mail address below. And I'll feature them in videos, and I'll wear them, and I'll add them to the wall. I got that whole pin board, and I got a whole nother one to fill up. So send in pins. Anyway, thank you very much.